Listen, I just want to welcome everybody to the Suncoast region because I think this is a really important initiative. And Carroll has tasked me with a couple of things. She wanted me to give you a quick overview of the Florida system and how we're a little bit different from other folks, and I'll do that for about 2 minutes. But I also want to take time to recognize and thank the folks in the room, particularly from the Suncoast, because I am from the Suncoast and I cannot be totally objective in that manner. But then they've also allowed me to indulge a little bit in talking about QPI because I believe in it so strongly. I think it's the right thing to do with the kids that we serve, and I'll tell you a little bit why. First, in terms of the state of Florida, is probably the most unique model in terms of child welfare services in the state. We have 67 counties that are divided up into 20 judicial circuits. Those judicial circuits are broken up into 6 geographic regions. You happen to be in the Suncoast region, and in this region we have 11 counties and 4 different judicial circuits. We have about a population of about 4.5 million people in this region, which makes us, just in this region, bigger than 25 different states. So we're pretty spread out. We also, child welfare services is delivered through community-based care agencies, and it's coordinated through lead agencies in each of these areas. When it originally started, we had 20 lead agencies, 1 for each circuit. We now have 17 lead agencies because over time, some of the lead agencies have absorbed the responsibility of providing services in multiple counties, and that has been a good thing for us. We also have, when we say we're community-based, each one of those lead agencies has what are called case management organizations that are actually feet on the ground working with the family. So in our particular area, in Hillsborough, for instance, Hillsborough is a 1-county judicial circuit. We have 1 lead agency, and it is Eckerd, and they work with 6 case management organizations who then have case managers with feet on the ground. This all wouldn't work. You all know on child welfare, if it's about protecting children, it's really a system. And so what makes us even more unique is that even in the CPI function, in some counties throughout the state of Florida, we have sheriff's offices responsible for child protective investigations. In the Suncoast region, I think we have 6 sheriffs total statewide. I have 4 that provide child protection investigation services in the region. One of them in this county, Hillsborough County, also in Pasco County and Pinellas County. I say that because that's generally, when you talk about the Tampa Bay area, people talk about Pinellas, Pasco, Tampa, and maybe Manatee. All 4 of those counties, child protection investigation is actually conducted by the county sheriffs in each one of those. For us in Suncoast, it's even a little bit different because child welfare legal services is done in some of our counties down south, down in Fort Myers, what we call Circuit 20, and some of Circuit 12 in the Sarasota area is done in-house by our child legal services folks that work directly for the department. But up in the counties up here in the Tampa Bay area, on one half over here in Hillsborough, it's performed by the Office of the Attorney General, and over in Circuit 6, it's performed by the State Attorney's Office. We have guardian ad litems in each one of those circuits. We have child protection teams in each one of those circuits. And I tell you all of this because particularly from a foster parent experience, when you bring a child into your home, communication is a huge issue. And when you think about all of the points that have to connect to make this work, it is a huge challenge for us. So community-based care has been an incredible move forward for us in so many different ways because it has brought a groundwell of support from each community, and it's really helped each community shape their own system of care as it relates to children. But with that, and with all the different parties at play, it's sometimes like herding cats. And Carroll would know, because Carroll was one of the first folks who stepped up in this Quality Parent Initiative and was charged with barnstorming the state along with Gay to really facilitate the beginning conversations. And I kind of equate it to being a used car salesperson, because people weren't jumping on this ship right away. We were selling it one person at a time, but it has been successful. And when you look around and you see the amount of people, every circuit is represented here in the state of Florida today. And so for the folks that are out of state, it tells you that while it takes time, it can work, and people do buy into it. We are talking to you about our journey on this. I call it a journey because I don't think anybody here in the state of Florida, as much progress as we've made, would tell you we're finished. Because if you compared where we are today to where we were 3 to 5 years ago, it's like night and day. But we have challenges every day. We have slippage every day. And so we have much more road to travel to get this thing where we want it to go. But we are much better off than we were 4 or 5 years ago. From my perspective, I'd like to thank a couple of folks, because this thing would not have worked without the involvement of foster parents at the local level. I am very proud in the Suncoast region, because I think we have a fantastic, absolutely fabulous contingency of foster parents. And I think we have some very strong foster parent associations. And you're going to hear from Kim from the Hillsborough Foster Parent Association later. In fact, sitting in this building is testament to how strong that Foster Parent Association is. And I hope Kim has a chance to get with you later and show you all of the cool things that this group has collectively been able to do for not only foster parents, but for those relative caregivers, the kinship care folks who are in the same circumstance, may have a little bit easier job because there's a blood relationship to the child that they're caring for, and they had some history with that child before they cared for them. Nonetheless, can be as challenging with some of the things that they have to do with and for those children. So we could not have done it without the strong group of foster parents that we have. Also, we had leaders from each one of our CBC agencies that stepped up and made this work. Donna Krauser, I see Donna. Donna was one of the first persons on board, and I think was one of the reasons Hillsborough was in the forefront of this thing from the start. But Laura Lynn Seeger's here, Monique Myers from the Sarasota Y, Dave Brown from Children's Network. All of these folks have been instrumental partners in this process, because as you work through this, the one thing QPI is a two-way street. It's not. You have to develop relationships between the agencies you're working with and the folks that work for those agencies, as well as the foster parents who deliver the care. So without these folks and their leadership, we would not be where we are today. So I did want to thank them. QPI, why did we do it? And before I even go there, let me give you back up just a little bit. I wear multiple hats in my role, and one of my hats is I'm a Sterling examiner, and what that means is I get to go out to view all types of organizations in the private and public sector and do assessments and all that other stuff. And no matter what organization you go to, everybody's got a mission statement, everybody's got vision statement, everybody's got a set of values. And what you find when you go from one organization to the other is there are some organizations, and I don't care what type of business you're in, there are some organizations that the mission and the vision and the values of that organization are a living, breathing thing. You can see it in every action and interaction that takes place with that organization's workers and their customers, no matter what segment or what business they're in. Okay? There are other businesses where that mission statement, the vision statement, the set of values are simply words on a paper, and it doesn't reflect what happens day to day. I think if you're in the business of child welfare, if you are not mission driven, if you don't have a vision for where we want to go, if you're not guided by a strong sense of values, this thing doesn't work. Okay? And first and foremost in our mission in child welfare is to protect the vulnerable. Okay? And that sounds like a no-brainer. Protect the vulnerable. Okay? And most people, if I talk to most people in the community, what they think protect the vulnerable means is when you read some horrendous story in the newspaper about somebody who abused their child, well, this is easy. Just remove that child from the home and put them in foster care. And I would say to you that, yes, that's the first step in protecting that child, But that's not what we're talking about when we say protect the vulnerable. When we say protect the vulnerable, and we have a child like that, it's about protecting that child's self-worth and well-being. It's about protecting that every child's special. And it's important that when we run into kids who have been victimized, abused, and neglected, and that it rises to the level where those kids have to be removed from their home, it is so important after they're removed from the home that we protect the thing that makes those kids special. That we create safe environments for them to deal with the trauma they've experienced. That we create safe environments that allow them to be normal kids. To be normal, not to be perfect. Because if you're a foster parent, you know our kids aren't perfect. Our kids are normal. Okay? And we have to create safe spaces for them to be normal. And so when I say protect the vulnerable, it's about recruiting the best and the brightest. It's about recruiting the most passionate, the most committed, the most caring foster parents we can have. Quality Parenting Initiative on the front side is a recognition that foster parenting is not an entitlement, okay? It's not a God-given right. It's a privilege to care for kids. And we have to go out and recruit the very best, most talented, most skilled folks we can find to do that, because our kids deserve nothing less. And by the way, our mission is to protect the vulnerable. Our vision, if you read the vision statement of the department, and I love this, it's to do so in a manner and at a level that we do for our own family. And I talk to my staff about that all the time. If you feel uncomfortable with the situation and you wouldn't have your own child in that situation, then stand up and do something about it. Because that's what our vision statement in real-time words in life means. If you wouldn't tolerate it for your kid, then why are we tolerating it for these kids? Okay? And that's what I mean by mission, vision being a living, breathing thing. It has to drive everything you do. But I don't think that being a foster parent is entitlement. I don't think it's a right. I think it's a privilege. Okay? And I think it's a huge commitment. And we changed the game a little bit, too. Because when you become a foster parent, you end up with kids, and I'll speak from experience. I have had dependent children placed with me. In fact, I've adopted a child from the child welfare system. And I think when I look back on it that we did a great thing for my son. But whatever we did for him, I got back 100-fold. 100-fold. Okay? But let me tell you, when I brought my son into the home, you would think who I was and what I did, that I would be like the Cadillac. I'd have every service in the house and I would have no problems. Well, this was prior to Quality Parenting Initiative, and it was a frustrating experience. Now, you know, we had a couple of kids, and my son that I ended up adopting had relatively few problems, so my experience with regard to him was a little bit easier. But my experience with other children who had some mental health issues and some behavioral challenges, it was different because you had to fight to get services. You had to advocate for that child all along the way. And that's what we ask foster parents to do. Okay? We ask you to open up your heart and your family to open up their heart and embrace these kids like they're your own. And if you do that, that means you're going to become their number one advocate. Okay? You're going to ensure their health and well-being. We're not going to wait till they're sick to bring them to the doctor. We're going to bring them to the doctor for appropriate preventive care. We're going to bring them to dentists on a regular basis because that's what we do for our own children. We're going to be in the school and active with teachers and at conferences. In my county over in Pinellas, we got this great thing called the Teachers Portal now, where I look at it every day and they update the grades and stuff. I think it's the most fabulous thing that the school has ever created. Because I asked my son, how'd you do today? Oh, I did great. I look, well, you're missing 4 assignments. Oh, yeah. Okay. But we ask foster parents to be that child's advocate in school, because if you read the statistics don't paint a pretty picture. They say that if you're brought into foster care, you're more likely to get involved in the juvenile justice system or the criminal justice system. You're more likely to struggle in school. You're more likely to have health issues. And I'm here to say that that doesn't have to be. Okay? These kids have experienced, some of them, incredible trauma when they arrive at a foster home or with a relative. Okay? But depending on the level of care and intervention and skill of that foster parent and foster family, many of those things can be worked through, and we can put the child on a whole new trajectory. Okay? Some of our kids, and school's a big one for me, because some of our kids come to us and they're already not doing well in school. And so we can throw up our hands and say, well, we can't do anything about this because this child was already not doing well. They were already an underperformer when they came to me. What am I supposed to do? Well, you may be the only chance they'll ever have to develop the right outlook and some of the right study skills and habits that they'll ever have. You might be the one person that changes their life as it relates to education. There are other kids that come to us who are A students, but they've gone through an incredible amount of trauma, and now they've been removed from their family, and they've been removed from their school, and they've been removed from their friends, and sometimes some of the social activities they participate in. And lo and behold, if we're not careful, that one-time A student no longer is an A student. And that's an even bigger injustice. So when we say to foster parents, we need the right folks, it's not an easy job. You know, the Marines have that slogan, the few, the proud, the Marines. We're the few, the proud, the foster parents, because it's not everybody that can do this, okay? And so that's what QPI is about, okay? Now, here's where the oxymoron comes in. We ask you to do all that, and then the first time that we end up on different sides of an issue, I start saying, boy, is that foster parent a pain in the butt. This foster parent needs some work. This foster parent's a problem child, and we need to do something about him. Or when it's time, and this is probably most critical for kids as well as for foster parents, when we have to transition a child, even if it's to transition them back home, which should be a positive thing in that child's life, if those things aren't handled well, it can be disastrous. And sometimes we look at a foster parent and they're reluctant to give the child up. Well, I go back to what we asked them to do. We asked them to open up their hearts and embrace this child like they were their own. We asked their family to love them like they were a brother, sister, son, or daughter. And then we're taking that brother, sister, son, or daughter away. I don't care who you are, there is a grievance process that takes place. And that grievance process can manifest itself in, I'm nervous about this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to participate in this. I say that's a natural reaction from what we've asked you to do. And we as a system have to deal with that. We don't always deal with it well, okay? And so, two things that the Quality Parent Initiative does. On the first end, it's directed at foster parents. We want the best and the brightest. We're not settling, okay? We want the best, the brightest, the most committed. We want people who are going to advocate for our kids, people who are going to oversee our kids' education, make sure that they have a safe place to be themselves. But culturally, from the department's perspective, we have to ask the programs and the folks that work with you to embrace you as a partner in the process. And I'm not just saying to treat you with dignity and respect, because we ought to be treating everybody we deal with dignity and respect. That's not it. We're not asking them to communicate with you because it's a courtesy communication. We're asking them to communicate with you because you're the primary caregiver of the child. You know, a CPI does an important thing in this function. They have to go in, assess, and make some critical decisions and move a child. And the guardian ad litem who works with the child plays a critical role. The case manager plays one of the most critical roles in that they work with that family and have to coordinate all the different people that are working with that family and the services that that family is getting, understanding what's the beginning, what's the end, and how we're going to move them there. There's only one person in this little wheel that's with that child 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's only one person that's with that child that talks to them every day, that comforts them when they cry, that sits in these meetings with teachers. It's one person. It's not the case manager. It's not the CPI. It's not even the guardian ad litem. It's the foster parent. And so why would we have a system where foster parents are not partners in the process? That doesn't make sense. Okay? But I can tell you, to open up and create a system where foster parents are welcomed as full partners at the table is easier said than done. Okay? Easier said than done. And I think we've made in this region, and I speak only for this region, I won't speak statewide, but I would say that the experience probably statewide is probably similar because there's so many folks here. But we've made tremendous strides in improving that relationship amongst our licensing folks, the folks who work with the foster parents. Those folks get this. They really do. They get this, and the relationships are real strong. Our case managers aren't all the way there yet. Okay, our CPIs aren't all the way there yet, and that's where we have work to do so that everybody understands the importance and the role that foster parents play in this. Okay, but I do think, based on the progress that we've made, I think we've made the system better, and I think we have much left to do. I do think it's the right thing to do, because to do anything less doesn't serve our kids in the way we've asked them to serve. One more thing. Can I say one more thing? Okay, one more thing. Another thing in this thing that changed this, and this may be new for some of the folks from out of state, because this was another challenge for our foster parents. Most of the kids who come into care end up going home. Okay? And for a long time, the traditional model was, I'm the foster parent, I don't really want to talk to the biological family. Are you kidding me? That is going to be too difficult, too awkward. I would rather not do that. Okay? In fact, why don't you come pick the child up and bring them to a visit? Okay? If this is really going to work and we're going to be partners in this system, and we know that most of these kids are going to go home, and we know we have the best, brightest, most talented, most committed foster parents in the world because of a system like this, then these folks also have to be skilled, have to have the skill and the will, because you have to be skilled and you have to have the will to work with biological parents and to work with them in a way that makes it safe for that child to go home, because we don't want to lose all the gains that you made in all the inroads that you made with that child, whether it be with their health, their education, their self-esteem. You don't want to lose that when they go back home. So if we have an opportunity to work with the biological parent so that we have another set of eyes and ears, and we can make that transition from foster care back home a positive thing, and you can maintain a relationship with that child after that transition takes place, to me that's the best of both worlds. Now, how many people here are foster parents? Do we have foster parents? Now, how many here think, is that an easy thing to do? That's incredibly challenging, isn't it? Incredibly challenging. Nonetheless, we ask you to do it. And that's why I say Quality Parent Initiative is only going to work if you have two sides playing ball together. The department, in our case, the department is represented really through the lead agencies and all the case management organizations that work with you directly, and the foster parents communicating as one team and as equal partners at the table around what's in the best interest of the child. Okay? And you have to set some procedures and protocols up to force that to happen. And by the way, that happens very easily when everything's going well. It's when things aren't going well, leaders have to be willing to step in and mitigate through those circumstances and get away from what we've done in the past in terms of labeling foster parents as difficult. But that's an important relationship that has to be cultivated. And then the other thing is, when I say we want the best and the brightest, the most skilled, we've changed your job. Your job is even more difficult than it was in the past, and that's why we need the right people. So I'm happy to be involved with this. I thank Carroll and Gay for facilitating this, to beginning it. I thank our CBCs, particularly in my area, that have worked so hard to make this real. And I especially thank the foster parents who have hung in there through the years. And I hope that you see light at the end of the tunnel, because it's not perfect, but I think it's getting better. So thanks for everybody for being here.